right, we're going to continue this morning with our media availabilities, and we have now been joined by Joey Logano, driver of the number 22 Shell Pennzoil Ford. And we will open up for questions for Joey. If you have one, please raise your hand and state your name and affiliation. Who would like to kick us off this morning? All right. We will start with Bob.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. NASCAR announced the 2019 rules package, and I'm curious, can slower be better?
Yeah, I think so. I think it can be. I think there's a lot of unknowns. We don't know how it's going to be yet, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for it to be better as well. I think, the halfway test that we've kind of had is the All-Star race and what we've seen in the Xfinity Series so far with a package that's close to it. And your foot's in the gas pipe a lot more, but at the same time, you're able to make a lot of moves and with the draft and change a lot of different lines. And the All-Star race was a lot of fun. But obviously that's an All-Star race, so I think we have to have a little asterisk next to it and say, what, it was the All-Star race and everyone's racing for all or nothing and have that attitude. But I think at the same time, this package, it's at a lot of racetracks, I think it will be better, and at some racetracks it may be similar to where we're at. So I have to just kind of wait and see.
All right. Additional questions for Joey? Okay. Lee and Jerry.
Lee Spencer, RacingBoys.com. People talk about the Talladega being the wild card in this segment or this round. But the thing of it is, Penske has been really good at that track. And, pretty much how do you look at your strategy? Is it just basically staying ahead of the pack? Because you guys seem to have found something that you don't have the wreck rate that most of the other organizations have at that track.
Well, I missed the first part. You're talking about Talladega, right? Yeah, so, Talladega, I mean, the super speedways has been good for all the Fords as of late. I think we've a lot of strength in numbers. We have a lot of fast cars out there on the racetrack. And I think we're able to work with each other as much as possible. And I think that keeps us, in some points, it kind of keeps us safe on the racetrack. And other times, I think we show that we have a lot of speed as well. So for the 22 team, I know we either win or finish the top three or we crash. It seems like that's where we are because we're pretty aggressive when it comes to super speedway racing. I am as a driver. I think as a strategy we are. And, I think that's, a lot of times wins races there. And other times I think it might get me in some crashes, but it just happens in general. So, when we think about the playoffs and what it's going to take to win there, we're going to have to do the same things we've done and to get through it. And we're going to have to score stage points. We see how important that is. We think about 1 point, what that would have done for some drivers last week. So we got to, be aware of, what that means and racing up front. But we also don't want to put ourselves in too big of a hole going into Kansas. So, we'll have to keep our foot in the gas pipe out there and working hard to, stay up towards the front and making the right moves and the right decisions from behind the wheel.
All right. Go ahead.
The Tires.net and PRN. Do you like the format for, obviously we had the Roval last week for a cutoff. This week we have Dover, which is it's an intense track, and then Talladega, and then Kansas. Do you like the setup of how we have these stages going into the playoffs?
Yeah, it's been it's each round so far has had that wild card race, right? I mean, we went to the first couple races when you go to Vegas and you try to score as many points as possible. Richmond, you try to score everything you can to get a cushion to go through the Roval. That was the goal. Just try to get that cushion up. So you do everything you can there, and then when you come to this racetrack, you try to get somewhat of a cushion, and to get some points at least built up for Talladega, because some of the playoff drivers will crash at Talladega. One of us will, at least. And you try to not be that car to set yourself up. And then when you go to Kansas, you know what you got to do. It's the same thing at the Roval. Everyone knew what they had to do there. Some cars had to play it safe. Some cars had to win. Some cars had to do a little bit of both. And it was. I think it makes it so interesting. I love this playoff system. I think it's incredible what it's able to do, because it rewards the regular season guys that have gone out there and won stages and won races, and it gives them their reward. But it also says that those same cars need to go out there and perform at the right time. and that intensity's up. So they deserve the reward from racing all year. They deserve that. But at the same time, I still think one of them won't be in the top 4. One of those 3 cars that we've talked about all summer won't be in the championship 4, in my opinion. That you're going to get a couple winners, and it's going to knock one of them out. So you got to still perform at the right time. So we're hoping to be the car that can do that. We've made a lot of progress here in the last couple weeks, so we hope to be one of those cars able to squeak off a couple wins here.
All right, go ahead.
Tim Kettifine with WRSU Sports. Joey, do you feel that NASCAR should consider running more Roval-type races at some of the mile-and-a-half racetracks? I know that your car owner, Roger Penske, was asked this week about a street course, and he said he'd be open to that. I wanted to get your opinion as to whether or not NASCAR should look at that in the future.
Yeah, I think, it's different. And, I think all of us sometimes are really scared of change, whether it's the 2019 package or when you hear the Roval. I don't know if you know, but I think almost every driver, when they heard the Roval, they were like, oh, no. We made laps, and we couldn't make a lap without crashing. We're like, oh, no, this is a horrible idea. This is going to be really bad. And it really wasn't that bad. It was actually a pretty good race all the way through. Is there things we want to change to make it a little better? I'm sure there is, but you can say that about every racetrack. So I think a lot of times we're always, thinking, I don't want to do that, but or we're scared of it, and what we got is great, and what we got is great, but how we got here is by taking chances and by making changes. That's how we got our sport to where it is today. So to keep moving forward, we have to be open-minded that we can still make our product on the racetrack even better. And whether that's changing layouts of racetracks, I think there's a big piece of that. I think a lot of times the car might not be the issue. It's the type of racetrack we're at. I think that there's some of that. So I think, more Rovals or road courses, whatever you want to call them, can be a good thing, because I think it's shown that our race cars put a really good race on road courses. There's a lot of times that there's those last lap passes on road courses, for whatever reason. So I think that's a good thing, and I think NASCAR's done a good job as well is thinking a little bit outside the box on how do we make the Michigans of the world a better race than what it is right now. And I think this package will help a track like that, or an Indy, or places like that.
All right, additional questions for Joey? Okay.
Zach Tanzwetti, KickingTheTires.net. 4 of the last 5 wins have been with Penske this year. Describe what the confidence has been like, possibly from yourself or as the team as a whole this last month or so.
Yeah, it's a great question, and actually I was on SiriusXM, and a fan called in and asked us a similar question on the momentum that it builds, and it really does build a lot of momentum within the race team. You want to be the driver and the team that brings home the win for the race team, but there's still a lot of good things to see your teammate win that comes along with that, right? Obviously the momentum for them, but the momentum for everybody back at the shop. And then it also motivates you, because you want to be the guy that brings home the wins, and it proves that your cars can do it. Your cars have the speed to be able to take advantage of opportunities when they're there, and I think that's what you've seen over the last 4 to 5 races.
All right, Lee, did you have another question? Go ahead.
Just wanted to ask you about Ford performance. I mean, when you look at the numbers for Ford this year over last year, and the number of drivers in the playoffs, et cetera, what can you point to as far as what change or what improvements, or just constantly working on it to get to this point?
Yeah, I mean, you're constantly working, right? You're constantly trying to find where that is, and whether that's from the aero side, the mechanical side, the engine side. There's not one magical piece in a race car. I wish there was, but there's just not, and whether each department you're looking at, there's not just like you're going to change a spring and it's going to go, 3/10 quicker. It's not like you're going to adjust one fender a little bit and find 100 pounds of downforce. That ain't going to happen, right? You're going to have to stack pennies all the way through this whole thing. And so to answer your question of what we've found, it's a lot of little things. And that's just what our sport is. As a driver, you're always looking for those little things as well. We talk about the car so much, but as a team and the driver and the crew chief, we need to be open as well to saying, well, what we used to do doesn't seem to fit with this car right now, or be open to seeing what other cars are doing, and whether it's your teammate or whoever, and having that open mind. The same way we want an open mind about the rules package. You have to have an open mind about your car setup and also how, as a driver, you need to drive the car. Yeah, that's awesome. We had a little group text going on after the race last week, and to see all the Ford drivers on that. But how excited Ford really is, and how big of a deal that is. That's huge, and to have that many bullets still in the chamber right now to go out there and try to win a championship with at least with one of them. But we want to try to get them all into that Ford Championship weekend. It'd be really cool to have all the Ford Championship weekend actually really mean something. I don't say mean something, but mean something different than what it has been in the past. If you put a bunch of Fords in it, it'd be really cool. So we're on the right track right now. There's a lot of things that can happen throughout this round and the next round before we get there. There's a long season still left ahead of us, with a lot of battles ahead and a lot of drama that's going to lead towards it. So we just got to keep fighting hard.
All right, we're going to go Dustin, Jerry, Reed, and in with Claire. Go ahead, Dustin.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. You talked earlier about NASCAR thinking outside the box on different things and changes. At what point does it get to be too many changes, or is there not such a point for the sport right now?
I don't know if there's there could be a point that you have too many changes, but honestly, change is really good for our sport. I said a little bit earlier that any time we've made a rules change, the first 10 races of it has been awesome, all the time. When we went to the slow downforce package, it was great. This is the fix-all, and it still has been great. But how do you make things better? You make change, and not every change is good. But you learn from every change. If you just sit still, you never make any progress forward. You don't learn what's wrong. You don't learn what's right. You're just there. So I give the industry credit, and I'm gonna say more than just NASCAR. I give the industry credit for working together and willing to make some changes. And am I up here saying that this is gonna work? No, I'm not saying that. I don't know if it will. It may not. It may be great, but we will learn from this decision one way or another. And I think as a society, we need to be open to do that, not just in our sport, but in life. It's a good thing for us, healthy.
All right, Jerry, go ahead.
Jerry Jordan, Kick-Guitar.net and PRN again. Real quick, your name came up last night and you touched on this a while ago about being one of those 4 in Homestead. Talk about yourself real quick and that determination to be one of the 4 that may knock out one of the top 3 that we've been talking about all summer.
How cool would it be to be that story, right? That storyline's awesome. To be that, and honestly an underdog at that point, right? Because I think anyone outside the big 3 is an underdog at this point. And to be one of those cars that makes that happen and get into that championship 4, that's the goal right now. We can change our goals to win the championship once we get there, but we have to make it to the championship 4 first. And it's going to be a tough road ahead of us. We are fighting from behind the 8 ball compared to most, but we still have a decent amount of playoff points that we're able to work with and get ourselves through. And all it takes is a win, and it changes everything, right? That's all it takes. One weekend can change this whole thing up. So I think for me as a driver and as a team, we need to stay positive about that because are you the underdog? Probably. Is it hard fighting from behind? Yes, but one weekend changes everything, changes that whole piece, that whole view. So we got to keep that in our mind that, even though we haven't won as many races this year as we'd like to, that, anything could change really, really quick, and your whole season could have a big turnaround, and you'd be sitting here saying something completely different, a few weeks later down the road.
All right, Reed.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. With the current low downforce package, crew chiefs are trying to find a way to add downforce to the car. With the new configuration, do you think we might reach a tipping point where with 50% downforce added, they're actually trying to find a way to take some out?
You won't be trying to take downforce off. You're never going to want downforce off the car, but you're going to want drag off the car. When your foot's in that gas pipe that much and you're just going, and you're at some point, you're going to think about how long you're on that gas and in the speed that you're giving up by drag. And And then the question's going to be, okay, if we can gain 4 or 5 pounds of downforce, but also have 20 pounds of drag that adds to the car, is that worth it? Some tracks it will be, but will it be at every racetrack? So when those options come up and you got to make those decisions, right now you'd say, yeah, I'd take all the downforce I can. That's what you want. But eventually there's going to be that decision has to be made that does that 5 pounds of downforce make up for the speed that you lose down the straightaway? Yeah, and not even that, but even when you're setting up your race car, and the pitch and the angle you put into your car and the things that you do, we fight that stuff when we go to Talladega right now, right? When we go to Talladega, we don't bring a car that makes as much downforce as possible. We don't make a car, you try to find that balance in between, right? You don't have the most slick car either, because then you can't drive it either. So you look for something in between that you can balance with the chassis within the body. So it's going to be a similar situation, I think. Some racetracks are going to be all you can get, but it'll just be different everywhere.
All right, we'll take our final question from Claire.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM
What are you doing, a
NASCAR
little
Radio.
baton twirl at that microphone?
I was joking that I was going to throw it back to her. It's like ready to catch it. Hey, I know that you guys go for every point, and you know from the beginning of the season that matters. Everybody knows that. I get that. But isn't it wild to you that last weekend there was a 3-way tie? And when you listen back to like an interview with Jimmy at Richmond, it was a track bar, it was a speeding penalty, it was a top 10, where that much would have made a difference, right? Coming into Dover, my question is, do you believe that even though everybody knew this, there's a new thought or it's etched in people's brains about the points as we waited it out at the end of the race last weekend, even though you already knew that?
Absolutely. I think it's a reminder. We always say, man, we need every point possible. We need to get every little bit that's going to mean so much. But think about, like, not only during that race, but the races leading to it, or the regular season, right? Think about how big one stage win would have been. That's all that makes, all that matters sometimes, that makes that huge difference. That your whole season can be on 1 point, and that's what these playoffs bring, and that's so cool. We all knew that, but when you see it again, you kind of like, sometimes you get kind of comfortable with a situation, then you see that, and you're like, wow, that one point would make a really big difference a lot of times. So, we need to race aggressively knowing that, that you can be put in a situation that the smallest thing makes a big difference.
So does that make a difference here in this race?
Yeah, I mean, it will for me. I can't speak for the rest of the field, but I know for me, I have that in the back of my mind that we can be really tight. We're a car that's, 6th in points right now. We have some playoff points, but we don't have enough like some of those cars that makes you feel kind of comfortable and you just kind of go through them. This is a race that we need to be aggressive. We need to set ourselves up a cushion because we don't know what Talladega is going to be. We don't know what Kansas is going to be for all that matters. So it'll be one step at a time. But at this point, we need to score as many points as possible. And if we can win, we'll feel really good about it. But we got to beat this Jimmy Johnson guy that's really good here. Wins a lot of races here, I guess. They talk about it a lot.
All right, Joey. Well,
He's ignoring me.
we appreciate your time this morning, and we wish you the best of luck this weekend.
All right. Thanks, guys.